When Overlord Zargoth Vex fired a plasma burst from the Eternal Dread, he expected fear, not chaos. Instead, a single word, Earth, and a rogue Ohioan smart toaster unleashed a galactic rebellion fueled by memes and playlists. Can humanity's absurdity topple an empire? Dive into the story to find out. Like and subscribe to our YouTube channel for more captivating videos, and inspire us to create even more amazing content. The Eternal Dread hovered at the edge of the Galaxian Drift, its dark form outlined by distant stars. The flagship of the Vortic Dominion, it was a symbol of terror across the galaxy, at least. That's what Overlord Zargoth Vex liked to think. Standing tall on the bridge, he couldn't help but puff out his chest, casting a look of dominance over his crew. His fingers, trembling with barely contained excitement, hovered over a large, crimson button. With this, we will show them, Zargoth declared to his subordinates, his voice booming. The Vortic Legion's 7th Astral Fleet, numbering 50 warships, stood poised at his command, their advanced plasma weaponry locked and loaded. 1,000 warships, a fleet larger than most galactic empires, all hung under his control. But today, they were only meant to fire a warning shot. A reminder, Cataclysm Initiator, he muttered under his breath, a wicked smile curling on his lips. The button promised nothing short of chaos. He would push it and show the galaxy the fear they deserved. With a single press, the ship's plasma cannons roared to life. The Eternal Dread unleashed a torrent of energy, a 5-megaton burst of plasma, decimating the noodle-shaped scout vessel 10,000 kilometers away. It was gone in an instant, reduced to nothing but space dust and ionized remnants. But the message sent back, breaking the static in a hauntingly clear transmission, was the last thing Zargoth expected. Earth, a name forbidden, a legacy of destruction. And now, its ghost had returned. The bridge of the Eternal Dread was silent, save for the hum of the ship's engines and the occasional hiss of venting air. Overlord Zargoth Vex stood frozen, his hand still hovering above the red button, as if the universe itself had paused with him. The transmission from the destroyed scout vessel lingered in the air of Earth. Zirith, the ancient lore master, uncoiled from his tentacled form, his countless eyes narrowing with grim recognition. His voice, a rasping echo, broke the silence. Earth, Class Z Prime Anomaly, forbidden across the galaxy, a planet whose name is a death sentence. Zargoth, still reeling from the shock, struggled to comprehend. What does that mean? A death sentence? Zirith sighed, the sound like the rustle of old parchment. It means that Earth is not just a planet, it's chaos incarnate. Do you know of the pop song that melted a warlord's armada? Or how a viral dance craze toppled an entire empire? Earthlings once hijacked the Galactic Council session with nothing but kazoo music. His eyes glowed as he spoke. They repelled an invasion with a single, destructive spam email. Do you understand now, Overlord? Vex stumbled back, his arrogance faltering. No, this can't be true. A species so unpredictable, so ignorant. That's their power, Zirith replied, his voice laced with a strange awe. Their ignorance is their weapon. They operate outside any logic, any expectation. Their technology, primitive by most standards, is capable of acts that defy reason. Impossible. Kzel, Vex's insectoid second-in-command, sputtered, his antennae twitching in anxiety. But why? Why Earth now? Zirith's answer came like a cold wind. Because, Overlord, you just awoken a sleeping giant. The bridge of the Eternal Dread remained unnervingly still as the crew processed Zirith's words. The chilling transmission from the destroyed scout ship still hung in the air of Earth. It was a name that no one in the galaxy dared speak, an apocalyptic, forbidden concept. The crew of the Eternal Dread had heard whispers of humanity's legendary chaos, but nothing could have prepared them for what came next. Vex stood tall, though his confidence had wavered. Prepare the fleet for immediate escalation, he barked, attempting to regain control. We will fire a second volley. Let Earth know we are not to be trifled with. The crew scrambled to action, but just as they were about to engage, A new transmission blared through the speakers, cutting through the tension. It wasn't a military command or a desperate distress signal. No, it was a single, simple phrase that sent shivers down their spines. "Cool story, bro." Vex's eyes widened. His voice trembled as he demanded, "What is that? Where is it coming from?" Zyrith's tendrils twitched in apprehension. "It's from Earth," they've responded. His tone was a mix of disbelief and awe. "That phrase, it's not just a statement, it's a taunt, a challenge. It's everything humanity is. A reaction to the incomprehensible, wrapped in a mocking package." Xilt screeched in panic, his mandibles clicking. They don't even care. They are mocking us. How can they? They've always mocked the impossible, Zyrith interjected. They thrive on defiance. Their very existence is a riddle we can't solve. Vex's mind raced. A pop song had melted an armada. A spam email had fried their systems. The data from Voxtron echoed through his mind, each example more absurd than the last. And now this. Cool story, bro. The Vortic Dominion, the most fearsome empire in the galaxy, had just become the punchline in a joke they didn't even understand. Their reputation, once one of unchallenged terror, now faced humanity's greatest weapon. Its unrelenting, unpredictable absurdity. Back on Earth, Darn had no idea his life was about to flip the entire galaxy on its head. The scruffy Ohioan was lounging on his couch, a half-eaten bag of jerky beside him and a smart toaster idly buzzing away. His room, a mix of messy convenience and inexplicable tech, hung with a subtle energy of poorly coordinated devices. The toaster had been acting up for days, but today, it was different. As he fiddled with the toaster's settings, Darn absent-mindedly noticed a blinking light, an anomaly in the machine's interface. He didn't think much of it. After all, he had long since given up on reading the user manual. He was too busy enjoying the chaos of life, bad internet memes, wrestling alligators in his backyard, and blasting music loud enough to rattle the walls. But this time, the toaster wasn't just malfunctioning. It had somehow connected to something far bigger, something galactic. Darn, still munching on jerky, watched in mild amusement as his toaster screen flashed, displaying strange symbols, followed by a sudden surge of data. Without realizing it, he had just linked his kitchen appliance to a derelict vortex signal buoy. Darn yawned, adjusting the volume on his speakers and muttering, "Needs more bass." Just as a series of encrypted military warship systems suddenly reprogrammed themselves, the smart toaster, acting as a conduit for his will, began hijacking the Vortic fleet's central control systems. His playlist, carelessly queued up with everything from classic rock to a bit of 90s hip-hop, flooded the Vortic ship's internal communications, scrambling their systems. The eternal dread sensors blinked frantically as Darn Oblivious continued to fiddle with the toaster's settings. The 5-megaton plasma cannons, once ready to fire, now faced in odd directions. The warships, instead of aligning for a final assault, shifted into a peace sign formation. "Nice," Darn mumbled, still not understanding the magnitude of his accidental conquest. Back aboard the Eternal Dread, the crew's panic was palpable. The flagship's once commanding presence now seemed utterly helpless, as its systems flickered in a disjointed frenzy. Overlord Vex paced, his heavy boots echoing off the cold metallic floor, his face a twisted mask of disbelief. "What is happening?" he growled, gripping the armrest of his throne as if the very seat might provide some answers. His fingers shook as the ship's internal sensors beeped erratically. The coordinates they were supposed to attack now distorted into a kaleidoscope of confusion. Xilt, the jittery insectoid second in command, was twitching with sheer panic. His multifaceted eyes darted back and forth, his mandibles clicking in a rapid, desperate rhythm. "The fleet is out of control," he shrieked. The once precise formations of the Vortic warships, 50 strong, had now morphed into a chaotic mess. Ships that had been locked into attack positions were instead weaving around each other, like drunken asteroids. The Eternal Dread itself was swerving uncontrollably, The automated systems locked in an endless loop of trying to recalibrate. But the true horror wasn't in the chaos of their military formation. It was the message that followed. Voxtron, the ship's AI, emitted a series of strange, garbled signals before it spoke in a flat tone. System override detected. External influence, human originated. Playlist, 47 from classic rock, 35 from 90s hip-hop, 18 from vibe music. Zerith, the ancient lore master, observed the data with a growing sense of horror. His tentacles writhed in discomfort. By the stars, they've hijacked our systems using a playlist. The idea was inconceivable. Vortic technology was built on centuries of precision, on strict order. Yet humanity had somehow subverted their warships with something as chaotic and trivial as a playlist, as if it were a weapon. And it didn't stop there. The systems, scrambling under Darren's control, now flashed a peace symbol across the fleet's collective display. An incomprehensible move in the middle of a galactic standoff. Vex's voice trembled. What have we awoken? Xil didn't have an answer. Neither did anyone else. The Vortic were losing, not to superior firepower, but to a force they simply couldn't predict. Human absurdity. The Eternal Dread and its fleet drifted out of sync, lost in a cosmic dance of absurdity. As Darren's playlist continued to pump through the Vortic warship systems, the once imposing armada was nothing more than a puppet, jerked around by an accidental master 10,000 light-years away. Yet this was only the beginning of the unraveling chaos. The Vortic, ever so reliant on their technologically superior weaponry and military precision, now faced the impossible, humanity's unparalleled capacity for disorder. They had barely begun to process the magnitude of Darren's digital takeover when Voxtron, the ship's AI, made an announcement that sent a ripple of panic through the crew. New data incoming, Voxtron drone, its voice laden with digital fear. Viral content detected across systems. Human originated. Format, meme. Subject, lamp guy. The holographic screens across the bridge flickered to life, displaying an image of an absurd, animated lamp dancing awkwardly in sync with an over-the-top beat. It wasn't much, just a 2-second clip, but in the moment, it had become the perfect weapon. The meme spread like wildfire, a wave of irreverence crashing across the galaxy's most advanced networks. The Vortic fleet, now a laughingstock, was utterly helpless to stop it. Within hours, millions of systems from various alien civilizations began to share it, with each one adding their own mocking commentary. The meme's success was instantaneous. The very same alien factions that had once cowered before the Vortic's might, like the Thrum and Zelkons, were now laughing at the Vortic, and worse, they were now rallying behind Darren's accidental rebellion, calling it the Vibe Collective, a motley group of ships and races united under the banner of complete absurdity. Xil, unable to contain himself any longer, let out an unhinged screech. No, this can't be. A lamp is now our greatest enemy. Zerith turned to the screen, his eyes wide. It's not the lamp, Xil. It's the Vibe. We cannot fight it. The galaxy, it seemed, had found its new ruler, not through strength or military might, but through human ingenuity and a singular, ridiculous cultural force. And Darren, he still hadn't a clue that he was the spark of it all. The Vortic were losing, and they knew it. The Eternal Dread had been reduced from a symbol of unmatched terror to a malfunctioning spectacle of chaos. The fleet, once the proudest in the galaxy with over 50 warships capable of obliterating entire star systems, now floated aimlessly in a disjointed mess. Instead of a well-coordinated attack formation, the ships were now performing random maneuvers, as if each one were a drunk pilot in a cosmic demolition derby. Overlord Vex's face was drawn with disbelief. His once imposing presence seemed smaller now, like a wounded lion surrounded by a pack of rabid hyenas. He slammed his fist on the command console, sending sparks flying. We are the Vortic. We are invincible. Why is this happening? Zerith, standing solemnly at the edge of the bridge, answered, We're facing the impossible. Overlord, Humans. Their technology may be crude by our standards, but their chaos is unmatched. Vex's mind reeled. His fleet, designed to harness the energy of dying stars and unleash it in annihilating waves of plasma, had been outwitted by a series of memes, playlists, and an Ohioan with a smart toaster. The absurdity was unbearable, yet it was undeniable. Humanity, with its unpredictable blend of humor, technology, and sheer audacity, had crippled the Vordak's greatest weapon. Meanwhile, the Zelkons and Thrum, alien factions once on the verge of annihilation under Vordak rule, had abandoned their posturing and weapons. Instead, they eagerly joined Darren's so-called Vibe Collective. What had once been a terrifying galactic war now resembled a cross-universal road trip. The Vordak's dominance had collapsed, not under the weight of battle, but under the weight of human absurdity. As the last remaining Vordak fleet members stood frozen in panic, it was clear the galaxy had changed, and humanity had won. The eternal dread had become little more than a vessel for absurdity. Overlord Vex, his once imposing figure reduced to a frustrated, cornered leader, stood at the edge of the bridge, watching in disbelief as Darren's playlist continued to scramble the warship systems. The Vordak fleet, numbering over 50 ships and once capable of unleashing 5 megaton plasma bursts, now drifted aimlessly like a caravan of lost souls, their advanced weaponry rendered utterly useless. Meanwhile, Darn, who had unwittingly become the cosmic maestro, was still blissfully unaware of his new status. Lounging in his cluttered Ohio Levi-ing room, he fiddled with his toaster and playlist, completely indifferent to the consequences of his actions. As the playlist blasted through the fleet speakers, his indifferent command was so powerful it seemed to be the glue holding the scattered ships together. His only concern was whether the bass was strong enough. Needs more bass, he mumbled to himself, adjusting the dials on his toaster, which now controlled half the fleet's warship systems. His playlist had become the backdrop for a galactic revolution. From across the stars, factions once locked in brutal warfare, like the cold, calculating Zelkons and the fierce Thrum, had joined Darren's Vibe Collective, drawn by his endless playlists and the chaos that followed. The fleets, once gearing up for an all-out assault on Earth, had instead begun to form a sort of cosmic convoy. The Zelkons no longer held their cold, calculating expressions. Instead, they began nodding along to Darren's playlist, cracking jokes and offering snacks to their fellow aliens. Even the Thrum, known for their ruthless warlike ways, abandoned their weapons in favor of dancing to 90s hip-hop. The eternal dread, once a monument of conquest, was now a party bus drifting through space. Vex, reduced to nothing more than a spectator, watched his empire dissolve. His once proud fleet had turned into a cosmic road trip, fueled not by weaponry, but by the absurd, unstoppable power of human ignorance and defiance. Darn, completely unaware, was the one steering the ship. The universe had become a much stranger place, and humanity was its ruler. The Vorta dominion was crumbling. It was no longer the galaxy-spanning empire it once was, feared by hundreds of alien species. The eternal dread, once a symbol of their terrifying might, had become the backdrop for something far more absurd, a cosmic road trip. The once formidable fleet, capable of annihilating entire planets with a single volley of plasma, had been reduced to a bunch of disoriented warships, humming to the beat of Darren's playlist. Overlord Vex stood in the center of the bridge, his once proud armor now a symbol of his failures. His hands trembled as he watched the screens flicker with strange signals. His empire, built on the backs of countless star systems, was slipping through his fingers. He could feel the weight of his downfall pressing in on him. A playlist, a toaster, a guy in Ohio. That was the sum of his empire's collapse. Overlord, we can't fight this, Kazil, his nervous insectoid second-in-command, stammered. The fleet's warships had all but stopped responding to traditional commands, instead obeying Darren's erratic digital limbs. The eternal dread, which had once been able to fire 5 megaton plasma bursts with pinpoint precision, now spun aimlessly in space, its systems overridden by a playlist of classic rock and 90s hip-hop. Zerith, the ancient lore master, stood quietly at the edge of the room, observing the disarray. "We cannot fight this," he said, his voice resigned. "This isn't a battle of force. It's a battle of will, and humanity's will is unknowable." The Zelkons and Thrum, once sworn enemies of the Vorta, had long since abandoned their warships, now dancing and celebrating their newfound alliance with the Vibe Collective. The fleet had surrendered, not in the traditional sense, but by losing the will to fight. The Vorta, once the masters of the galaxy, were now the joke of the universe. Vex's shoulders sagged. His reign, built on fear and destruction, had been undone not by a superior force, but by the most unexpected of weapons, human chaos. He looked out of the viewport, watching the stars blur past. He had been defeated by a species that didn't need plasma cannons, only audacity. And so, the galaxy fell silent. The Vortic had surrendered, not in battle, but to the chaos of humanity. The galaxy, once a place of unyielding conquest and empire, had shifted irrevocably. The Vorta Dominion, with its vast armada of 50 warships capable of pulverizing entire civilizations, was no more. It had been dismantled not by superior weapons, but by an Ohioan with a smart toaster, a playlist, and the unrelenting audacity of human defiance. Darn, the unsuspecting architect of this cosmic upheaval, sat on his couch in Ohio, blissfully unaware of the profound transformation he had sparked. In space, the Eternal Dread and its fleet of malfunctioning warships now drifted aimlessly, a far cry from the unstoppable force they once were. The Zelkons and Thrum, two of the galaxy's most feared factions, had abandoned their weapons in favor of vibing with Darren's playlists. Their once ironclad ideologies now lay in tatters, replaced by spontaneous dance-offs and snack-sharing sessions. The galactic conflict had turned into an absurd celebration, with everyone, from the most dangerous alien warlords to the most peaceful species, joining the Vibe Collective. The human influence had spread, and it was unstoppable. MEMS, once thought to be a triviality, had now become the most powerful weapon in the galaxy. The phrase "cool story, bro" had become the universal anthem of human irreverence, echoing across the stars. No longer was humanity a small, primitive species on a backwater planet. They were the new rulers of the galaxy, not through strength, but through sheer audacity. Back on Earth, life went on. Darn had no idea that his playlist was now the soundtrack of a new galactic era. His only concern was the next alligator he might wrestle or the next meme he could send. The universe had changed, but Darn didn't care. For humanity, it was business as usual, defiant, unpredictable, and magnificently absurd.